Hey everyone! Today we're diving into the interesting history of the Berbers, or as they call themselves, the Imazighen. These remarkable people have called North Africa home for thousands of years, long before written history even began. They were the dominant group in the region we now know as the Maghreb until the Islamic conquests of the 8th century. And while modern Berbers are a minority today, their roots run deep, connecting them to the pre-Arab inhabitants of this vast and diverse land. The name Berber actually comes from the Latin word barbarus, which the Romans used to describe societies they considered less civilized. But to the Imazighen, their identity is much richer, with ties to an ancient past shared with other Afro-Asiatic cultures like the Egyptians, Kushites, Arabs, and Somalis. Interestingly, in old texts, they were often called Libyans, a term that later became interchangeable with Africa itself. Now, let's talk about their origins. Evidence of their ancestors stretches back to prehistoric times. In the Sahara, there are ancient cave paintings that show us a very different North Africa, lush, teeming with wildlife, and full of life. Before the Sahara became the vast desert we know today, it was home to hunter-gatherer communities, deeply connected to their land and its resources. Even their mythology reflects this connection to nature. The Berbers had deities linked to the sun and moon, much like the ancient Egyptians. Greek historian Herodotus wrote about this in 430 BCE, saying the Berbers worshipped the sun and moon but no other gods. This spiritual connection to celestial bodies was something they shared with other pre-Abrahamic cultures in the region. What's really fascinating is their deep respect for stones and rock structures. For the Berbers, stones weren't just inanimate objects, they held spiritual significance. You can still see this in some of their ancient stone-cut mausoleums, like the stunning Royal Mausoleum of Mauretania, which stands as a testament to their traditions and craftsmanship. This practice wasn't unique to them either. It mirrors the rituals of other Afro-Asiatic cultures, like the Nabateans' reverence for the black stone in Mecca. Their story also ties closely with ancient Egypt. The Egyptians knew about these powerful semi-nomadic tribes as early as the 13th century BCE. They sometimes clashed with them, even seeing them as barbarians, especially groups like the Meshwesh and Ribu. Fun fact: the word Libya actually comes from the Ribu. Despite these conflicts, there were moments of cooperation too. The Berbers didn't always see Egypt as an enemy. Sometimes they appreciated the stability and protection that Egyptian power offered. Over time, the Berbers developed their own writing system, heavily influenced by Egyptian hieroglyphs and later by the Phoenician alphabet. This was a big step for a culture transitioning from oral traditions to a written legacy. And now let's talk about the Berbers' fascinating interactions with two of history's most powerful civilizations, Carthage and Rome. By the 9th century BCE, when the Phoenicians established Carthage in North Africa, the Berbers had already begun transitioning from a nomadic way of life to more settled agricultural and pastoral societies. This shift set the stage for a unique relationship between the Berbers and their new neighbors. The Phoenicians were master traders, and they found exactly what they needed in the Berbers: resourceful partners. Agriculture, which the Berbers had likely adopted earlier through interactions with Egyptian and Fertile Crescent cultures, became a cornerstone of their society. By the 2nd century BCE, two major Berber kingdoms had emerged, Numidia and Mauretania. These kingdoms maintained a degree of independence, even as Carthage grew into a regional power. While Carthage was primarily focused on the coast, the Berber kingdoms thrived inland, enjoying their own trade networks and influence. However, the relationship between the Berbers and Carthage wasn't always equal. Within Carthage itself, Berbers were often part of the lower classes, serving as laborers or soldiers, while the Phoenicians controlled the wealth and power. But the Berbers were anything but passive players in this dynamic. They formed alliances and sometimes turned against Carthage when it suited their interests. One such moment came during the Second Punic War. The Numidian king Massinissa initially supported Carthage, but as he saw the tide turning against them, he switched sides, allying with Rome. This was a game changer. With Roman support, Massinissa secured his position as the ruler of Numidia, and played a key role in Carthage's ultimate defeat at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE. This victory didn't just mark the end of the war. It elevated Numidia's status as a Roman ally and ushered in a new era for Berber society. Under Roman influence, Numidia became more integrated into the Mediterranean world. Agriculture flourished, trade expanded, and many Berbers shifted to a fully settled way of life. But Rome wasn't content with leaving the Berber kingdoms entirely autonomous. To prevent any one leader from growing too powerful, the Romans divided Numidia into smaller client states. This strategy worked for a while, but it didn't eliminate the Berbers' ambition for independence. Fast forward about a century, and we meet Jugurtha, one of the most intriguing figures in Berber history. Jugurtha bribed his way to power in Numidia, and rebelled against Roman authority, sparking the Jugurthine War. Although he was eventually captured and executed, his resistance showed the Berbers' enduring desire for self-rule. The final blow to Numidia's independence came during the Roman Civil War. Juba II, another Numidian leader, sided with Pompey against Julius Caesar. When Caesar emerged victorious, Juba paid the ultimate price, and Numidia was fully annexed into the Roman Empire as the province of Africa Nova. Over time, Mauretania faced a similar fate, transitioning from a client kingdom to a Roman province. Despite these changes, the Berbers maintained much of their cultural identity. Unlike some other regions under Roman rule, the Berbers resisted heavy Romanization. Their traditional way of life remained intact, shaped more profoundly in later centuries by the arrival of Christianity and eventually Islam. Even then, echoes of their ancient traditions continued to resonate, reminding us of their incredible resilience and adaptability.